right. Dave is going to be the chair this evening.
Okay, so, yep. Are we ready? Call the meeting to order. Was this meeting properly noticed?
Yes.
Would you call the roll, please?
Sure. Alder Furman.
Present.
Alder Evers.
Here.
Joe Clausius. Where is he? Is Joe here? Was Joe here before Dave? Okay.
I'm here.
Oh, okay, sorry. Michael Cullen
I am here.
and Dave Branson
I'm here.
and Valise Adams. I don't
Is
see
there
her.
a quorum present? Okay.
Yes.
Is there a quorum? Okay. There are no public hearings tonight. Are there any disclosures or recusals? Hearing none. The first agenda item is the appointment of the Board of Public Works Chair and the Small Business Enterprise Appeals Committee alternate.
We start with the chair.
We'll start with the chair, yes. Michael Cullen, would you like to be the chair?
I'd like to nominate Michael Cullen.
Okay. Is there a second to that nomination?
Second.
Okay. Been moved and seconded. Are there any objections?
I think you have to say, are there any further nominations? And for some reason,
Are there any further nominations? Okay. I was in a hurry to get rid of this. Okay. Are there any further nominations? Are there any further nominations? Are there any further nominations? Hearing none, nominations are closed. Michael, would you accept the nomination?
All right, I think you're unmuted now, Michael.
All righty. Yes, I will. Thank you very much. It's an honor.
All right. Okay, so are there any objections to having Michael as the chair? Hearing none, Michael is the chair. So, Mike, I'll let you take over the meeting.
Well, thank you very much, Dave. Well done. Hope everybody bears with me as I stumble through this thing. Heidi's there to clean up the mess, I guess. Next item, do we have to talk about the small business enterprise nomination?
That's correct. And we just need the alternate on that. I'm sorry. We just need, he was the alternate. We just need the alternate.
So I would like to nominate Michael Cullen as the Small Business Enterprise Appeals Committee alternate.
Oh,
I'll second.
it's kind of loading up on me here tonight.
If I could explain, that committee only meets, there is an appeal. And there's on average about one appeal per year or so, maybe two. So it's not a tremendous burden.
I kind of like that schedule.
Needed.
So we got a second? Yeah, Michael, I'm on that as well, and I've been on Board of Public Works now for 2 years, and we've only had one appeal that I participated in, and I would just say it's an incredibly interesting process, and obviously doesn't happen often, but it's certainly different than what we do every day here at Board of Public Works, and it's something I think you'll enjoy if it happens.
That sounds great.
So I think you'd ask if there's any other nominations.
Are there any other nominations? Did we have a second on that?
Yes, David seconded it.
Dave seconded, okay. Dave, you got your hand up?
Yeah, that's a mistake. Well, I'm going to lower it.
All righty. Okay, if there's no more, no further nominations, do we have to take a vote on this at all, or just ask for objections?
Yep, that's it.
Are there any objections to me becoming the alternate for this committee? Seeing none, thank you very much for your confidence in my abilities. Moving on here, public comment. Do we have anybody registered to make public comment, Heidi?
We do not.
Have anyone? Oops, sorry.
Okay, do I have a motion to approve the minutes of the board meeting from Wednesday, July 8th?
So move.
Okay,
This is Joe making the motion. Second.
all right. Any objections, comments?
So Michael, I think the best way for you to do this is to ask if anybody objects to recording a unanimous vote.
Okay.
And that would be for all the items basically that
Alrighty.
are calling for an approval.
Does anybody object to making this a unanimous vote for approval of the minutes? Seeing no objections, it's so approved. Item number 5, or item number 4, water resources impacts. I believe there's nothing for this meeting. Is that true, Heidi?
Yes, that's correct.
Alrighty. Number 5, do any of the board members know of any items on the consent agenda that they would like to break out for further discussion? These are items number 8, 10 through 15, and 18. Seeing none, do I have a motion for approval of the consent agenda items by unanimous consent?
Move approval.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, we've got a motion to approve, a second. Any objections? Okay, so the consent agenda items are approved unanimously as listed. Item number 6, accepting the 2019 Compliance Maintenance Annual Report. We've got Kathy Cryan.
Hi, I have a short PowerPoint that I'm going to share with you. Heidi, can you enable my screen sharing ability?
Yep. So I stopped sharing, so you would just have to do. Oh, you probably have to be promoted then. Tech staff, does she have to be promoted, or can't you share?
See the screen share on the bottom, then you can. Then you do.
There's a green in the middle.
Yeah, it was telling me. Up there it is now. It was telling me I didn't have rights.
There you go.
Let's
Changed
try
it.
this. Okay, bear with me here a minute, please. Okay, so
We're seeing that, Kathy. It looks good.
can you all see this?
Yep, we can see it, Kathy. It looks good.
Okay, so the CMAR is our Capacity Maintenance Annual Report, and that report is required by the DNR as part of our discharge permit for the sewer utility. It basically assesses our level of compliance with the permit requirements. And there are 2 components to the CMAR. One is a financial component, and then our operations. And they grade this report, what we provide them, on a scale of 0 to 4.0. So CMAR has been in effect since 2005. And we're proud to say that every year since then, up to and including 2019, we've scored a perfect 4.0. And what that means is that we're financially sound and well managed. We're planning for replacement and rehab of our aging infrastructure. And we're also planning for future growth to assure we have the capacity to meet future demand. We're maintaining and operating our system to assure it functions as designed, and we're minimizing sewer backups and overflows to protect the public health and environment. The city's collection system consists of 786 miles of sanitary sewer main connected by 19,000 plus access structures and 30 lift stations. And every day we convey 30 million gallons of wastewater to the Nine Springs wastewater treatment plant from our residents and businesses. A little bit about the makeup of the pipes in the system. Sanitary sewer pipes have an estimated useful life of 100 years. And you can see here that 61% of our system is 50 years or younger, and that only 2% of our system has exceeded its theoretical life. And that's what we refer to as our infrastructure deficit. The majority of the pipe at this point in time is plastic. These kind of mirror the age of the pipes. In 1983 and forward, most pipes were constructed of plastic materials, PVC, and in some cases HDPE. Prior to that, they were predominantly clay or vitrified clay pipe. And down here, you'll see this is the percentage of our pipe that's been rehabbed through our trenchless cured in place program. So it's about 5%, makes up 5% of the system. And that cured in place program has really allowed us to move forward with meeting our target of 1% a year of total main reconstruction and rehab. It's a trenchless method, can't be used in all instances, but where it can, we can do a lot more footage per year at a lot lower cost and without just digging, so we don't disrupt and cause inconvenience to our residents and businesses. Our preventative maintenance program plays a significant role in how well our system functions. We have a pretty aggressive preventive maintenance program that calls for every pipe in the system being cleaned on a scheduled basis, a minimum of once every 3 years. There are pipes in the system that are cleaned more frequently, and that's based on different characteristics, age, whether they're a little bit laid, a little bit flatter, whether they're 6-inch mains, whether they have a history of root problems, whether they're connected to businesses that produce grease, that sort of thing. So you'll see over the years, we have significantly reduced our sanitary sewer main backups to the point where we're consistently under 50 since, 2005 was the last time we exceeded 50 sewer main backups. And you could see in the early to mid 90s, we were pushing 400. Last year, we were at 7. So post sewer backup, I just want to make you aware that even though we don't have a lot of sewer backups and sanitary sewer overflows, when we do, we have a process in place to assure that those don't repeat themselves. Within 24 hours, we televise the sewer that backed up to determine what caused the issue. We then either make repairs or perform increased cleaning, or we recommend those lines for reconstruction or rehab by our engineering staff. So that's all I have. Do you have any questions?
Do we have any questions from the board? I've got a question, Kathy.
Okay.
It looks like the electrical usage goes up in December, January. Is that because of electrical heaters, or what's the reason for that? Do you know?
You know, I don't have a good answer for you, but I can find out and get back to you.
All righty. And then the second question that I had, you got average daily flow down as roughly 30 million gallons a day.
Correct.
You have the data for peak monthly and peak hourly flows?
No, we get that data from the sewage district, and they don't have that data available to us, broken down by the individual communities that they serve.
But don't you need that data to make a determination if you've got excessive infiltration?
We know when MMSD monitors and maintains our sewer lift stations, which we have 30 of those, and they do let us know when we have excessive pump run times. And we have been working in a number of areas to reduce, known areas to reduce I&I. We did a significant lining project over on the Winona Way area. We've done considerable reconstruction and lining in the John Street area. We've had problems in a newer area off of Midtown Road that we've done a number of things, including raising the structures above grade that run through a farm field and masticing those on the exterior to try and reduce the I&I. So we do get information from them. And Rob, do you have any more detail than I'm providing?
That's what we primarily use is the station run times to determine if we have a problem or not. And it might be interesting for the board to know that we're not actually measured individually as a city. We are the area is measured collectively, and then all the other municipalities are subtracted, and then that's assumed that the remainder is the city of Madison's flow. So we don't have one single point of measuring our waste coming into the plant.
Do you think that would be a benefit to the city to get a little more detailed information for the city to make decisions on some of these different areas?
No, I think we get that information. All the flow is going through a pumping station at some point, so we get that information. You look at the typical daily flows and run times and out of those pump stations, and you can find out, when it rained, and if you see a spike during those rain events, you've got some kind of issue. And we're pretty proactive about addressing those issues. So if we have an area that's a known problem, then we do a study in that area to find out more about it, and that includes televising the sewers and sometimes smoke testing and such to just to zero in on what the actual problem is. And then we program those sewers for lining or replacement over time. I mean, I would say we have an interest. We would prefer to be measured as a city, but it's complicated, and it all has to do with how the system evolved. And there's a few charter members in the beginning, and it's expanded over the years. And we've discussed this issue and continue to discuss this issue with the sewage district, but it's very, very costly to do it.
Any other questions?
Make a motion to approve.
Older
Second.
Evers has got a hand up there.
Move to approve.
Yep, I'll second it.
Michael, you'll have to ask if it's unanimous.
There you go. Sorry about that. My system froze up.
Oh, you came back and you weren't co-host anymore.
Get out and then come back again. Pardon me? So has there been a motion for approval?
Yes, we have the motion and the second.
All righty. So unless I hear further objections, the motion will be approved unanimously. Are there any objections? Seeing none, motion's approved. Okay, item number 7. We've got recommendations contained in the Wilson Street Corridor Study. We've got Gretchen or Renee.
All right.
Yeah.
Yes.
Can I see my screen?
Yeah.
Yep. We can see it just fine. Thank you.
Perfect.
All right. So thank you, Gretchen and I from Traffic Engineering. Just want to go through the Wilson Street Corridor Study with you as we have started through the approval process. And you can go to the next slide, Gretchen. All right. So for this corridor study, we're really looking at all of Wilson Street from Blair Street on the east side all the way to where it ends on the west side, as well as a few blocks of Broome Street from John Nolan Drive up to West Main Street. All right, next slide. So a little bit of a history. If you've been on the Board of Public Works for a while, you've probably seen this project come through again. In 2019, we were working on this corridor study, and then we were working towards actually a construction for that 300 block of West Wilson and those Broome Street blocks. We had 4 public information meetings, worked on some design alternatives, started through the approval process, both for the corridor study and for that particular part of the project. But the corridor study really was not completed at that time. And so the Transportation Policy and Planning Board and Transportation Commission felt that it would be best if we completed the corridor study before we really went forward with any construction projects in that corridor. And they also wanted to see a design for bicycle accommodations that would accommodate riders of all ages and abilities. So next slide. So in 2020, we started back up. One of the first things that we've done is we had a number of meetings with a group called the National Association of City Transportation Officials. If you're not familiar with them, they've written a lot of the urban design guides for urban streets, for biking, pedestrian facilities, transit. So since it's an evolving area right now, we wanted to meet with them and go through our designs, ask some questions, and make sure that we were able to propose something that would work really well and be a safe facility. We also had stakeholder meetings. At the end of June, we had an additional public information meeting. We did an information presentation at the TPPB just, I think, last week. Here we are at the Board of Public Works. And then, of course, we will be coming back with that 300 block of West Wilson in the Broome Street. Once we have this corridor study approved, those will need to go to the Common Council. But our goal for this has really been to get everything in place so that we could bid the 300 block in Broome Street at the end of this year, so it could be constructed right away next year. And I just, mentioned we had stakeholder meetings. We really wanted to meet with a pretty wide array of people because we know that this is an area of great interest. There is a lot of competing demands. There's not a lot of space for those competing demands. So we really wanted to meet with people and talk about what are their biggest priorities and where were areas they might be able to compromise. So we met with a lot of business owners, Monona Terrace, the various condo association boards. We met with Downtown Madison, Inc. We also met with people from the city county building who have some unique needs, the sheriff's department, Dane County facilities and administration, as well as the state agency facilities to talk about their 2 buildings on this corridor, the police department. We also met with the Department of Civil Rights and Access to Independence because we wanted to ensure that we were building something that would be accessible for people of all abilities, whether they have visual, mobility, or cognitive impairments. And then, of course, we met with the fire department, and we have another meeting with them because that street does, in some instances, serve as a fire lane. So we want to ensure that we're preserving safety in that sense as well. And as you can see, there were obviously millions of things that we heard that were very important to people. I won't go through all of those, but many of them are safety-oriented, aesthetics, greenery, things like that, that you probably heard with a lot of different projects that are also very important as in this gateway to downtown. All right. Now going back to 2019, and I'm going to talk a little bit about the bicycle alternatives we reviewed, because that was an area that I think really people wanted us to look at more, but I don't want you to think that this project is all about biking. There's definitely, compromises for all users and improvements for pedestrians, transit users. Hopefully we make this safer and more clear for everyone, whether you're driving into downtown or getting there another way. But in 2019...
Renee, I just want to make sure people understand the drawing on the right there.
Yeah.
So the 2 diagonals is what you're showing there, and the street changes at that point.
Yeah, so Wilson Street obviously has a 2-way section and 1-way section. So kind of a confusing street for some people. And when you think about it, it's kind of hard. And we'll go through that a little bit more in some future slides. But this is kind of what we had considered for the bike facilities in 2019. Just your conventional bike lanes painted on the street. And so where there's a 1-way traffic, you're still only able to go 1 way. Then there was the idea that we would have your conventional bike lanes, but in the 1-way section in the middle, we would offer a contraflow lane because there are a lot of riding on the sidewalk because people desire on bikes to get to those without having to go all the way around. So that was something we looked at. Then we looked at what is called a cycle path, a separated 2-way cycle track. And we looked at that as well for the full corridor so that you would be able to travel 2-way in a separated space for motor vehicles. And if you go to the next slide, that's what we are going to talk about tonight and what we're recommending for this alternative. And we will have some more slides that show how that will work. But we really came up with this because there are a lot of safety benefits. It definitely increases the usage, particularly by a less confident cyclist. It's a very clear space, not on the sidewalk for cyclists. It takes up a lot less space to do a 2-way cycle track versus 2 1-ways. It also allows for passing, it can improve connectivity. Obviously, it's better for access on one side of the street or other than the other. We do have to give a lot of careful thought to the design of the loading areas, particularly for areas with people with disabilities. It has to be a very clear design so that everyone knows where people walk, where they bike, drive, and park. And it can have some negatives in terms of being less efficient for cyclists. And you do have some challenges in ensuring that everyone is aware that it's a 2-way facility in that 1-way area, particularly where you wouldn't expect that travel. All right, next. But there are many benefits. There was a big study of one in Brooklyn showing that crashes went down, speeding actually went down, sidewalk riding was reduced to almost nothing. The traffic volumes and travel times were very the same. A lot of more people were biking there, and they had, during that initial study, had any pedestrian injuries. Portland did some research finding that they're more popular. People are more likely to choose that route than ones that are not cycle tracks. And, the design, as I mentioned, we met with that organization, NACTO, because the designs have been changing. There's a lot more thought going into them, and we wanted to make sure that we were following the most current best practices in our designs that we're looking at. just in case you are not too familiar with cycle tracks, I put in 2 examples. The one on the left is that one in Brooklyn where they did the study, where they also did a lane reduction to build that. And then on the right is in Vancouver, and I included that one. It shows a raised pedestrian crossing to a floating bus stop, which is something that we are proposing as a part of our design as well. All right. Gretchen. All right, there we go. So now this is currently what it looks like from Blair Street to Henry Street. And Gretchen is going to go through these sections with you.
Thank you. I couldn't unmute myself. Okay. So yes, so I will go through what the cycle track would look like on the different sections of Wilson Street. And we will start with Wilson Street between Broome and Henry. So if we stand on Wilson Street and we look east, so if we look towards Blair Street, this is how the street would look like. We have 1 travel lane each direction, and to the right, which is south of Wilson Street, is where the cycle track would be located. The cycle track in this section is going to be off-street, so it'll be at the same level as the sidewalk, but separated from the sidewalk by the terrace. And this is a plan view of that 300 block of West Wilson. On the left is Broome Street, and to the right is the intersection of Henry and Hamilton. Highlighted in green is the cycle track, and then we see 1 travel lane each direction. And as we approach the intersection of Henry and Hamilton, we have 2 left turning lanes to accommodate the volumes that are going to be turning onto Henry and Hamilton. We keep moving east, and the next section is between Henry and Butler. This section, the cycle track, is also located on the south side, but on street. So it'll be on the same level as vehicles. And we have the cycle track followed by a 2-foot buffer, a loading and parking lane, a travel lane, and then a lane that's going to be located to the left or north side of Wilson Street, which is going to be a parking lane during off-peak hours, but a travel lane during peak hours. So during the morning and afternoon peak hours, this section of Wilson Street will have 2 travel lanes, and whenever it's an off-peak time, it'll have parking on both sides. After meeting with NACTO, they suggested that at locations where we are expecting larger vehicles for loading, to narrow the width of the cycle track. Here we have 9 feet instead of 10, and make the buffer wider for that transition zone between the loading lane and the cycle track. The cycle track is going to be located to the south, so next to the curb for the majority of the block, except where we have any disabled parking. For the vehicles to be able to load and unload the passengers, they need to be next to the curb. So in any locations where we have disabled parking, the cycle track will shift left or north about 8 feet to be able to provide that space for the disabled parking. The next section is going to be Wilson Street between Butler and Blair. In this section, we currently have parking on both sides. And after doing a parking occupancy study, the parking on the south side of this section had the lowest occupancy for the entire corridor. So the proposal is to remove the parking on the south side to be able to provide enough room for a 2-way cycle track on street and a 3-foot buffer. As we are approaching the intersection with Blair and John Nolan, the on-street cycle track would go off-street right about the intersection of Franklin Street, and it would continue off-street and separate from the sidewalk. So we would have a 5-foot sidewalk and a 10-foot cycle track, and they will approach the intersection and cross at the same time as pedestrians. to the east side of John Nolan that has a separate sidewalk and path. As part of our corridor study, we have Broome Street between Main and John Nolan. Between Main Street and Doty Street, we have an on-street protected two-way cycle track and a floating bus stop to accommodate the existing bus stop that we currently have located right here in this block. So to be able to make this floating bus stop accessible to all users, we have a crossing that's going to be on the same level, so raised throughout, from the sidewalk across the terrace and across the cycle track. Next is Doty Street on Broome Street between Doty and Wilson. And here we have an off-street two-way cycle track. So very similar to what we have on the 300 block of Wilson Street, a cycle track and separate from the sidewalk. And we have one northbound lane on Broome Street. We currently have two, so to be able to provide enough room for a separate cycle track, we are reducing the northbound lanes from 2 to 1 on Broome Street on this block. Here we are on Broome Street looking towards West Washington Avenue, and we are on the east side. This intersection right here is the intersection of Wilson Street. So on the east side, we have a 6-foot sidewalk, and the proposal is to make that 10 feet wide shared use path and relocate the utilities so that they're out of the way of the shared use path. And this is how the intersection of Wilson and Broome would look like. We have the channelized right turns with the raised crossings to reduce the speed of vehicles and increase safety for pedestrians, making them more visible to the high right turning movements, especially the northbound left turn in the mornings. And we have shorter signalized ped bike crossings. So with these two islands right here, we provide a shorter crossing for pedestrians and bikes that are going to be signalized. So for the east, west, and south leg. Also, with the location of this island right here, since we had to remove one northbound lane and we have 2 lanes on the south side of Broome going northbound, we only need one, or we can only have 1 lane feeding that receiving lane on the north side of the intersection. So the rightmost lane is going to be a right turn only. If we didn't have this island right here, vehicles, even though it's going to be marked and it's going to be designated only for right turns, vehicles could continue north. And when they realize that there's only 1 receiving lane on the other side of the intersection, they would try to merge left or make a sudden right turn. And that's exactly when the pedestrians and the bikes will have a walk or a signal to be crossing Wilson. So by having the island located right here, we are making sure that vehicles on the rightmost lane have to make that right turn. So if you're a pedestrian or a bicycle, and we are right here down on the shared use path, if you're a pedestrian, you want to continue east, you can use the sidewalk, the existing sidewalk. If you're on a bike, you would continue east on the off-street cycle track. You want to continue north, you would use the raised crossing and wait for the walk or the signal to continue north on the separate cycle track for bikes or the sidewalk for pedestrians. If you want to continue west, you would wait for the walk or the signal to cross Broome Street and then use the raised crossing to get to this corner. If you're a pedestrian, you can continue south or west on the sidewalk. Or if you're a bike, you can use this bike ramp opening to continue west on street for the 400 block of West Wilson Street, which could be a 2-way cycle track or a buffered bike lane, which is what was approved with the Bassett Street corridor study. Renee.
All right. So as you can see, we've met our goal to be all ages and abilities for majority of this section, except for that 400 block where the Bassett Street study had made the recommendation for that buffered bike lane. But there are 5,000 VMT in that section. So at the TPPB meeting, they did ask us to take a look at that particular section to make that all ages and abilities and see how we can create a two-way cycle track that would continue through that section and make it easier for people to travel both directions safely. All right. And so obviously we have a website that has lots of information. These are our contacts, but we are also available for questions.
Okay, do we have any questions? I had one question on the Broome Street portion of the project where you've got to relocate the utilities.
Mm-hmm.
Is that going to put the utilities right at the street?
No, so we would be making the sidewalk wider to make that a shared use path. And then we will also have some terrace space, so about 3.5 feet. And that's where the utilities would be relocated to.
Okay. All right, good. No, looks very good. Any other questions? Do I have a motion for approval? David?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Got a motion with a second. Unless I see any objections, the motion will be approved unanimously. Seeing none, so moved, so approved. All righty, thank you very much.
Thank
Gretchen
you.
and Renee. Agenda number 9, relocation order for land interest. So we've got Sally Swenson.
And I see Janet is here, and I believe she'll be taking this item.
Okay.
All right, there I am. Hi, I'm Janet Schmidt at City Madison Engineering. So tonight we're talking about the property that we refer to as the Dreger property that we're going to be acquiring as part of a regional stormwater facility that's located just north of Midtown Road and east of Meadow Road. So as you can see from the map, we have quite a bit going on in this area. The area of interest is the 13.35 acre property that says to be acquired. I'll explain the map a little bit. So currently we have directly to the west of that, there's a piece that has an arrow right above the word road in Midtown Road. We recently acquired that from the Dreger family as well. So this is going to be a continuation of land acquisition in this area for flood mitigation efforts, as is indicated in our Lower Badger Mill Creek Impact Fee District and is shown in the Pioneer Neighborhood Development Plan. So the goal for the project, and you'll be seeing this later, Sally is going to be the project engineer for the pond project. But we're going to do large regional stormwater facilities just north of this area that we're going to be acquiring. And that's going to be a large pond, and it's going to stretch south through the property that's going to be acquired and then eventually discharge out to Midtown Road. This is all kind of in conjunction with a future park expansion for Hill Creek Park. That's totally separate from our project, but it's going to be done in conjunction with that. So engineering staff had met with the Dreger family, and they've been very willing and to sell this property to us. We had worked with them to allow for some developable land. They realized that the area that we are looking to acquire is very low and is going to be subject to flooding in the future, just as the lands develop. And actually, it does have some issues right now. If you look on the map, you can kind of see the darker lands that are indicated on the aerial photo. And those lands actually get inundated quite frequently, and it's very hard for them to crop this. So they were willing sellers, and we've been working with them quite a bit over the last 2 years. So we are going to be carving off just a small rectangular piece directly to the east of the area that we're acquiring, and that's going to allow the druggers to actually subdivide those properties and make them into sellable lots. The acquisition price is $1.2 million. We have a relocation order that we're looking to file fairly soon. Once that's done, we'll start the appraisal process and then be working with the druggers to acquire the property. With that, I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Do we have any questions? Seeing none, do we have a motion for approval? David?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Joe?
Yep.
Okay. The motion will be approved unanimously unless I see any objections. Saying none, motion is approved. Thank you, Janet.
Thank you.
Item number 16. Advertising bids for the Harper lift station replacement. We've got Kyle.
Yes. Hear me all right? All right. My name is Kyle Frank. I'm with City of Madison Engineering. I'll be the project manager for this project.
Yes.
The project itself is the replacement of the current lift station out at 3402 Harper Road, which is right at the basically the intersection of Harper Road and Woodward on the north side of Madison, right near the shores of Lake Mendota. You can kind of see the picture down the lower right of the sheet is what the existing station looks like now. There's a building with a dry well, which holds 2 pot pumps. And then the engines themselves are housed, and the electrical is housed within the building. These pot pumps are getting extremely old, and the ability to maintain them is becoming extremely difficult. So it was determined that it was time to look into getting them replaced with something more modern and upgrading all of the utilities, controls, telemetry, as well as providing an emergency generator for the site, which there currently is not one. We put the design out for proposal, and we've been going through the design process over the last couple of months here to get to the layout that you see in front of you. The station itself would be located to the north and along Harper Road there. It would not have a building, which is currently shown. It would be an on-grade concrete pad with an on-grade lift station lid. The control panel would then be located to the east of the station. And it would be fully upgraded with all new electrical panels and all that other stuff. It'd be all new plumbing, all new pumps. And the current design is to use a prefabricated lift station. So essentially the station shows up, it's actually retrofitted offsite, shows up with all the plumbing and everything already installed. The pumps are then installed, it's excavated and installed in the ground then. We will be also be including a emergency generator, which will be located to the south there. And it'll be within a fenced area, which will also hold the telemetry antenna. So all that will be encased and locked behind a fence. It'll also block it from view from the neighboring property. And then the final piece of this project is to upgrade the force main, which leads from the lift station down to a structure located at 401 Warder Drive. So we would be looking to pipe burst that force main and replace it. Along with this project would include, so we actually found out that our current lift station is not within any sort of easement and is actually located on private property. So part of this project is also including acquiring an easement, which would essentially be the triangle portion that you see there. So we've been in talks with that property, and they are on board. And we will be acquiring that easement to actually house this lift station rather than squatting on it like the previous lift station was. So that's kind of the overview of the project. We'll be looking to put the project up to bid here in the next couple of weeks with a flexible start schedule, either starting this fall or potentially next spring. We're hoping to get some of the work in this fall, if not completed this fall. With that, I'll open up to any questions.
All righty. Do we have any questions? Kyle, I got a couple questions for you.
All right.
What type of materials are we looking at as far as the prefab portion of this project?
It is a prefabricated fiberglass out, basically shell that houses essentially is two vaults. You got the wet well, and then the valve vault is right next to it. Those are all formed together in this fiberglass structure.
And then these are submersible pumps?
Yes. Yep. The new ones will be.
And then as far as retrieving the pumps, is that with a winch or a crane of some sort?
It's actually on a rail system. If you actually scroll down, we got the layout of the new one. Let's see. I think it's the next one up, sheet 93 or 94 maybe. Nope, that's the old one, sorry. It was the next one down. One more. So here's kind of showing the actual cross-section of it. So they're on rails that essentially you can, basically there's a disconnect valve, a quick disconnect valve that disconnects whenever you lift it. And they are on essentially chains in a rail system then that get lifted up.
And is that, so would you be backing up a truck with a David crane on it or something, or would you?
Yep. Yep. So all of MMSD actually maintains all of our stations. So they do have trucks that do have lift cranes on them.
All right. Just curiosity, what was the date of the existing pump station installed? That I guess I'm just curious on how it was installed without having an easement.
Yes, it was installed in 1962. And I don't know if it's very close to the property line. So I don't know if that property line has changed since then, or if the survey was off by that much. I'm not sure, but 1962 was when the original was installed.
Gotcha. Okay, any other questions? Do I have a motion for approval? David?
Move to approve.
Do we have a second? Alder Evers?
Second.
Okay, we've got a motion for approval with a second. This will be approved unanimously, and unless I see any objections. Seeing none, motion is approved. Kyle, thank you very much.
All right, thank you. Have a good night.
Moving on, item number 17, change orders. Change order number 2, Martin Luther King Drive. We got Rob.
Okay, this is just an oversight. The designer missed the caulking in the bid, so that price was negotiated with the contractor, and you'll see that $6,890 for caulk in the expansion joints and along buildings and such.
Is there a reason why we're paying for this, Rob?
We designed it.
Right, but you said the contractor missed it?
No, the designer missed it.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Yeah.
I must have misheard you. Any other questions? Seeing none, do we have a motion for approval? Alder Evers?
Move to approve.
Do I have a second? Joe?
Second?
Got a motion with a second. This will be approved unanimously unless I see any objections. Seeing none, approved.
Great.
Item number 19. We've got Christy.
Rob, she's no longer here. I think she's at TC.
Oh, all right. This is an agreement with the Department of Transportation to oversee the design for the John Nolan Drive project. The state requires these agreements in order for them to review this project. We're designing this project with the expectation that it would receive federal funds in the future, and therefore it has to be overseen by reviewed by the state of Wisconsin Department of Transportation as the project progresses, and this enables us to do that and enables us to apply for and hopefully obtain federal funds for the reconstruction of John Nolan Drive, which is from North Shore to Olin Avenue.
Do we have any questions?
The amount is $28,200.
Do I have a motion to approve? Alder Evers. Do I have a second? David?
Second.
Got a motion with a second. This will be approved unanimously unless there's any objections. Seeing none, motion is approved. Number 20, are you going to handle this one also, Rob?
I'd be happy to. The Autumn Ridge path is mostly a bridge over State Trunk Highway 30, and it's located just west of Thompson Drive. There's a natural kind of crossing location there where it's very high on the southerly side of Highway 30, and that is where the bridge is being sited. The city a number of years ago acquired a landing location on the north side. So we have property on the north side to land it at, and there isn't a great advantage over there, but if it's a good location, just how it works out. The same as the last item you just approved. This enables the city to apply for federal funds for the project in the future, and the Department of Transportation, just like I mentioned on the last item, has to do that for us. And the cost of this item is it's the same, $28,000. So this would be a future transportation alternatives project perhaps. We can apply for federal funds for that.
Okay, do we have any questions? Alder Evers.
Oh, no, that wasn't a question. That was me jumping the gun on moving to approve. I can step back and see if anybody else had questions.
So the way this works, if I could just explain, the city's in a better position to obtain funds. Actually, sometimes it's almost impossible to obtain funds if you haven't started the project, because they're looking for projects that can be built within a few years. So that's the case for both John Nolan Drive and the Autumn Ridge path and bridge. You have to get yourself in a position so you can get the money.
Makes sense. Do I have a motion for approval? David.
Move to approve.
Ready? Do I have a second? Alder Evers.
Second.
We have a motion with a second. This will be approved unanimously unless we have an objection. Seeing none, motion is approved. Item number 21, June change order report, just for information purposes. Is there anything we need to discuss on this, Rob? I assume these are all items that we've been presented previously.
That's just information.
Okay. Item 22, appeals regarding qualifications for contractors.
There were none.
Very good. Item number 23, approval of a bid, Warner Beach Park Shelter.
Yep, one bid. That's contract 8850. And we are recommending the low bidder, Kenneth F. Sullivan Company, $688,900 even.
Any questions on that item? If not, do I have a motion for approval?
Move to approve.
We have a second.
Second.
Motion will be approved unanimously unless there's an objection. Seeing none, motion approved.
Joe had his hand up there. Is that just leftover?
Joe, you got your hand up?
No, that was for the second.
Okay. All righty. Well, thank you for bearing with me. I survived, I think.
I would say you did very well.
That's very kind of you. Do we have a motion for adjournment?
Move to adjourn.
Second.
We're adjourned. Thank you, everybody.
Bye, everybody.